First, I want to tell you quickly what I think the environment is, what some of the answers are, some of the current statistics are, so that we can put our business in context, and then we'll head over to the panel for some questions. First of all, where are we right now? Well, there's an overhang of overbuilding in the golf course sector. We know that. We had record-breaking building in the 90s and the early 2000s. We're still dealing with that. There's a declining number of rounds and golfers, about 11% over the last 6 or 7 years. We got about half that back in one glorious year last year. Rounds were up about 5.6% last year. How much of that was due to weather? We're going to find out this year, apparently, because it's been cold throughout the northern region through January, February, and March. So we're going to find out how much strength the consumer had last year compared to this year. As a result of those two factors, we've had the third important factor for golf course owners and operators, a downward pressure on pricing. And we see this in every segment of the golf industry, whether you're in private equity, privately owned golf course, or public golf course. That downward pressure is on us. Accelerating effect of third-party resellers. Third-party resellers have had some effect. The emergence of the internet and all that sort of thing has had an effect on pricing. The changing demographics of the golfer and the family dynamic that we heard about in the women's section. We'll talk about that a little bit more. And you know, I think, how many people here are associated with a private club? So most of the people here. The private club has been affected more than any other segment of the golf industry. And that has, I can't recall that ever happening before. I've been in the business for 24 years. Private clubs now comprise about the same as they did after World War II. So there's some serious issues that we have to confront, but the good thing is there are answers. As an industry moving together, we're seeking answers and we're making forward progress. We're talking about industry and individual initiatives like Get Golf Ready. It is an effective program. $1,000 for every new golfer every year. Now, if you take those and compound those results year after year, it's a way to turn this business around. And we need to reach these underrepresented groups, the largest of which is women. We had a consultant look at this segment. He's a consultant that does work in the ski industry and lots of other leisure industry. His name is James Chung with the Reach Advisors. He's out of New York and Boston. And he did a regression analysis over all the sports and leisure activities that Americans participate in any sort of large number. And at the end of his analysis, the one thing that he said was, for every sport or leisure activity that's growing, the women's population and participation is growing. For every one that is shrinking or holding its own, women are not growing. We're not increasing participation. It is as simple as that. I can't put it in a more straightforward way. If we're going to grow this industry to prosperity, we cannot miss the women's market. We can't get there from here. It is purely mathematics. That's all it is. It's mathematics. We cannot be where we want to be if we're not successful with women. There is no shortage of awareness for old white guys like me. I mean, we got those guys. There aren't any more to get. So we've got to find some different populations. I promise you that. A guy named Jim Ball, who's the CEO of Wilson Sporting Goods, he is helping us in golf. He knows a lot about sports demographics. And the Sporting Good Manufacturers Association did an analysis, a survey of 40,000 consumers, and they do this year after year after year. And they look at women's participation in lots of different activities. They essentially look at 124 different sports and leisure activities that the American population participates in. Out of 123, we are 112 in women participation right now, at about 17, somewhere between 17 and 19%. We've actually declined in women's participation in the last 5 years by 2 percentage points. I'll show you some of the activities that rank ahead of us. 101, free weights, pumping free weights, fly fishing, flag football, and give me a break. This is the last one. This is the give me a break category. Mixed martial arts for fitness is doing a better job with women's participation than golf is. We've got to do better. We can do better. We need to do better. And we've just got a tremendous presentation on how we can do better. Let me give you some things. We talk about this and we study the changing tides of the golf business pretty carefully. If we're going to do something better for ourselves, we've got to look at our programming, we've got to look at our facilities, we've got to appeal to everyone in the family. If I was a private club guy, that would be high on my list. Now, we have a meeting in summer, and we bring the largest private club operators in the world to our meeting. It's a multi-course owners meeting. It's in Monterey. You have to have 7 or more. So Club Corp is there, American Golf, Troon, all the big hitters. And they know that they have to change. If they're going to have the return on investment they're searching for, they have to do it, and they are doing it. They have to change the facility. They're putting millions of dollars into facility changes. They're moving to casual dining. You all probably know this from experience. They're changing their gathering places, their common areas, so that they're more contemporary. They're making their bar areas larger and more contemporary. And let me say a couple of things about jeans and cell phones. If you don't allow cell phones, how are you going to reach that woman whose cell phone is an appendage? How are you going to do it? You cannot do it. I got a consulting call. We had a member, a private club operator in North Carolina, was struggling badly. So their whole membership committee got on the phone and called me on a conference call. And this older gentleman asked me the dreaded jeans question. And he probably knew what my answer was going to be. I told him, I live in Charleston, I'm a member at Daniel Island Golf Club. Daniel Island Golf Club has about a $90,000 initiation fee. I didn't pay that, but some people do. Anyway, I have a friend of mine who's a professional athlete. He doesn't do anything that he doesn't do in jeans. Of course, his jeans cost more than any of our outfits on that we have today. But he's a guy who's prepared, ready, willing, and able to stroke a $90,000 check without batting an eyelash. Are you going to tell him that you don't want his $90,000 check and his family at his club because you don't want him walking around in $500 jeans? That's what I asked the guy. And he said, well, yeah, obviously, no. I don't want to turn that guy down. And that's the answer. I mean, you have to find an accommodation in your club for this guy. You have to find a place so he can wear jeans comfortably and be with his family. You have to do it. I don't think it's an option. And the cell phone thing, I understand you want to protect the privacy and all that with the people, and that's important too. You just cannot ban, you can't have a blanket ban of cell phones unless you operate one of the very, very, very top level clubs. Maybe if you're in the top 1% of the 1%, you can do that. But in most places, you can't do those sort of things. So you've got to be willing to change. You've got to examine the changes you need to make. You've got to be willing to do things that are different. You have to change your programming. You have to look at non-golf revenue. You have to look at special events, all the sort of things that we were talking about before. You have to talk about the way that you're going to appeal to women. I think, it was interesting in the prior discussion, we talked about running. Running is a perfect metaphor for the change that needs to be made. I've been running since the 1970s. When I started running was almost exclusively all-male endeavor, I promise you. And it was all about the competition. And it was all about the time that you ran. That was what it was all about. Well, right now, running is exploding. Running is exploding because of one simple thing. Women's participation in running is going through the roof. Has nothing to do with competition, has everything to do with an event that you can do with other people. That you set a goal, you run a marathon, a half marathon, a 10K. Who cares what your time is? No, they don't care what their time is. I'm telling you, that is the difference in the mindset of how you increase participation. It's all about the fun. It's all about the inclusiveness. It's all about community. Those are the drivers for this generation's participation and women's participation. So that's the backdrop. And here are the real experts. I probably stunned them. I hope I didn't. So let me ask my panel of experts, what are you guys doing about that?
First of all, I think every club has its own niche. I don't think every club can have the same exact set of rules. And I guess if you ask Vernon, there should be very few rules. But I think at the Ridge, what we have acknowledged and what we are trying to do is we clearly do not have as big a female participation as we would like, or equal to our male participation. So what we have done are we've instituted things like 9 and Wine once a week or once every other week, where in the afternoon the ladies get together, they play 9 holes. Our head golf professional goes out with them. He tries to make it, depending on the group, he'll pair them up depending on their ability. And the beginners who are really trying to get to come to the club, he'll go out there and play with them. He'll make sure that it's not that competitive. If they're really beginners, they may even he'll make sure they all tee the ball up on every shot. So we do things like that. We try to have family nights. We never did that at the beginning. We had more formal dinners. And now on every Friday night during the golf season, we have a family night, which is informal. It's tied into our junior night. So we're not only trying to build up the female participation, we're also trying to address and get the juniors to become a bigger participating group at the Ridge. So on Friday nights, we have a junior clinic and a junior night. We do a junior member guest, which is, I don't think a lot of clubs do that. We have all different kinds of tournaments with the parents, whether it's a parent-child putting contest or a 3-hole tournament or an 18-hole tournament. So things like that, and they're all, our head golf professional who's in the audience today, that's one of his main responsibilities. He is to try to do whatever is necessary to increase participation. And he's one of the first people that our members see when they walk onto the property. A lot of times they don't walk through the front door of the clubhouse. They'll walk around and enter the pro shop on the way to the locker room. And it's his job and his staff's job, and they know what the deal is. They're read the Riot Act at the beginning of the year and throughout the year. That's one of their main focuses, to try to increase participation at all levels. And we're pretty good at it. I think we've been successful. We have junior camps. We try to do different clinics for the ladies, all based upon different playing abilities. And our goal is to try to make them very comfortable. As what was stated earlier today, it's not sometimes that difficult to get a female out for the first time. It's more difficult in a lot of instances to get them to come out the second and third time because they feel intimidated, or they feel comfortable with the head golf professional who's giving them a little lesson and an introduction to the game of golf, but they're not that comfortable with the other playing females at the club, especially the competitive ones. And if they're new to the club, they have difficulty they don't know at the beginning whether they're the other ladies or gals are the competitive players or are just out there to have a good time and get some fresh air, etc. So it's a working process. It's something our staff has to work on a daily basis, but it's something that's clearly critical now and not like it was 10 years ago.
Our company manages 11 golf courses in 7 different states, from a private equity club to a 9-hole par 3 course. So we're all over the board as far as profiles of club. So as a general answer, I think our initiatives have been getting the feedback from our customers, in Vernon's words, our fans, in your words, the members. And we found that that has been the most useful tool for us to manage our business as effectively as possible. There's a very inexpensive software online that's called SurveyMonkey. It's extremely inexpensive. It's very, very effective and very easy to use. Example, we manage Hawk Point up in North Jersey. We sent the survey out, this year's survey out on Friday. We already have 170 responses that could be reviewed instantly by anyone on the staff who has access to it. So once we get that feedback, we really process it and to say, hey, we don't know what's in people's minds right now. We think we know, but we're not the experts. We're not paying the dues here. Our members are, and by looking at that feedback and reacting to it with programs like Joel mentions and more, we could really start to fine-tune our business to be more effective and have people happier as the season goes on. You can't, I think Vernon said earlier that, 50% of the people liked the decision, 50% didn't. I think we all agree to that's the challenge in our business, is that everybody has opinions. And thank God we're not in the food and beverage business in this meeting, because that opinion is even worse. But we're there to make the people happy, and I use a very key word in all of our discussions is the intimidation factor. I think it was mentioned all day today as far as people coming to the club and using it one time. Joel just mentioned it, leaving. I know Sandy did too. Vernon probably did in some way or form. But I call it intimidation, is that we're all comfortable at our clubs. We go there every day. We see the same parking lot. We know the same people. We know who the pain in the necks are, who know who the good people are, all that stuff. But when, at the end of it all, we're not really exposed to a first time or a one-time look at the club. And every once in a while, yourself and your staff members, challenge them to really look at the club from a new perspective on if they came into the parking lot, just put on a different hat that day and walk right in and look at everything that happens to them as they walk through the bag area, the starters area, the pro shop area, and really absorb how you're treated. Now, granted, you're a staff member, so it's a little different, or follow somebody in that's coming in as a guest and see how they're treated, because that's a really valuable information to get away from this intimidation. And if you instill it in the staff and continue to tell them about it, I think it becomes part of the culture of what you're trying to do, and eventually leads to this infectious nature of people wanting to take away that intimidation factor and actually then going the extra mile to service them more and being more accommodating. Again, it starts with us. If we're not happy, our staffs aren't going to be happy either. So we're our biggest cheerleaders when we walk in our clubs, whether you're the general manager, the golf pro, the superintendent, the owner. So we always have to be on stage when we get to our club. Otherwise, it's just going to kind of wash down to all of our subordinates. So I think that, to me, is how we've really reacted to things. Years ago, you just throw a number out there and people come and join and they start paying dues. Now it's a whole different ball game, as all you know. The clubs with waiting lists have less waiting lists or no waiting lists. There's deals out there. So we all have to be a lot more on top of our business. So that's how we've reacted.
We face same challenges that all of our clubs face at Trump. Trump National Philadelphia, as many of you know, was Pine Hill Golf Club for over 10 years, and Mr. Trump purchased the club and converted us into a private club. So the women's segment of our membership has been one of the most challenging to grow. I think we've spent a tremendous amount of time with our head golf professional, David, and his staff to really cater, because I keep hearing it all throughout this entire afternoon, intimidation. Teddy O'Keefe and I were speaking about it earlier. We have a lot of ladies that have come to Trump that are very good golfers. Those of you that participate in GAP, it's very big down in South Jersey. We actually joined Ladies GAP due to the fact for the competitiveness. But however, on the other end, we have ladies that they're playing golf for the first time because they want to spend more time with their husbands. They would like to spend more time with their family because their children are playing. So, much like both Joel and Dave have spoken, we've just really invested a lot of time, even down to the locker rooms. When we redesigned our entire clubhouse, every amenity that is offered in the men's locker room is identical in the ladies' locker room. Yes, there's a difference in size, but that's dictated by membership and the outlay of the building. But you're not going to see anything different in the clubhouse other than the ladies. And they did. They inspected every day the men's locker room during construction to make sure the amenities were equal. But it is a challenge, and we talk about it daily, weekly, but I think that we're doing a very good job to react to it with our junior programs, cultivating the young girls that they can go out there and compete with the boys or separate them out. And then even when it comes to the ladies, we've created some competitive events in our tournament schedule, but then we also have ones that are more focused on being social. And that's just kind of what we've done because it is a competitive market. But I think we all agree it's a segment of our business that we really haven't figured out, but there's huge potential.
Obviously, is a key theme that we're hearing is, especially for the private club, it has to appeal to everyone in the family because the family dynamic has changed. So when you're selling or when you're reselling, and you're reselling every month, because every time somebody writes that dues check, you're really reselling them. They're making a decision. Do I want to stay here? Am I getting value? From the operators that I talk to, right from the sales process to the retention process, it's all about including everybody. So whether it's a fitness component where they're doing something with fitness in their facility, or they're talking about wellness and fitness with golf itself, or the gathering places themselves are changing as well. I think a good example is Brookhaven in Dallas, which is the flagship golf facility, is 54 holes of Club Corp. Bob Dedman started his career at Brookhaven, and they've increased their pool facility because the pool is big for the family. They've taken from the pool facility, added a all-weather putt-putt setup, and then it moves right into the driving range. So you got the driving range here, you've got the putt-putt there, and then the pool thing starts. So the kids are there all day long. They move, and the families are there all day long. They move from one area of the club to the next area of the club to the next area of the club, but they keep them captured and everybody's engaged. You guys have any ideas about facilities or what they need to look like, be like?
You might want to answer.
Any changes?
Yeah.
They're cool.
I'll take this. There's been many renovations over the last 3 years at Trump, but one of the things that we're in the process of doing now, which has been something that we've noticed, and everyone here has noticed it well, there is a family component to our membership. It's no longer the husband that would come and pay the dues and hang out with the boys and have a boys' weekend. It's definitely a household decision. And we're in the process now of really changing Trump National from a golf club to a country club. We are in the middle of construction of a 5,000 square foot pool with a complete complex, outside bistro, and locker rooms that is going to focus on the family aspect. We've revised our memberships so that we will offer those amenities from a family aspect, and we're really going after that, trying to turn it into a family club. Two reasons being that our club, if any of you visit it, we're not in a backyard or a neighborhood. We're a kind of a destination. You have to drive to get to Trump. It's, from the Cherry Hill area, it's a good 15, 20 minutes depending on where you are, or even if you're down in the neck of the woods where I live in South Jersey, in Gloucester Township, and Mantua and Mullica Hill, it's still 15, 20 minutes to drive there. So we're trying to change the club and create a atmosphere that's welcoming to the families. And as we finish that, then we're going into a couple more projects that once again will cater to families so that once they're there, dad or mom can go play golf and then meet the kids afterwards at the pool. And it's definitely that we've seen to be very successful, and it's helped our membership to sustain and grow over the last 3 years since it's been a Trump property.
And I'll add to Eric's comments. If you want to get a gold star in your file at your club, if you're ever renovating your pool, it's always about the deck space. People build elaborate pools, and they end up under designing their deck space. Because if you think about when you're at a pool, most of your time is spent in lounge chairs and walking around, and kids are running around. And a common mistake made in a lot of clubs that we've been involved in is that the pool is large and nice, but there's no room for people. So the first comment is the pool's too small. it's really not the pool's too small, it's the deck space was never built large enough to accommodate the people who want to sit around the pool and not go in the pool. So if you're redesigning your pool someday, just bring that up in your manager's meeting and just ask for a raise before you do it, though. But in all seriousness, we have one of our marquee clubs in Indiana. A competitor is Crooked Stick. It's right down the street. We've focused more on the lifestyle component of a country club instead of a golf club, which obviously Crooked Stick is. When it was designed, there's child care in there. There's a very comprehensive child care facility within the fitness area. So that child care facility is probably about 2,500 square feet. To give you an idea of the space, it's not a closet that you shove some kids in for a couple hours. It has computers, it has a playground. There's an indoor pool, an outdoor pool, a 15,000 square foot fitness center, and then a 40,000 square foot clubhouse that incorporates dining and casual dining and all that. The point is that we've created a mark in that marketplace as the family club and the lifestyle club, which we more refer to as a lifestyle than anything else. And the most important part to the question with the facility is, again, if you're doing a renovation or if you get into a new position, is that, just think about it. Again, I always go back to this, is that if you wanted to go there and relax and hang out, what somebody would really like and dislike about a bar area in a club. One of the weaknesses at that same club is the bar area was underdesigned. Somebody mentioned earlier is that bar areas are social gathering places. They're very popular these days, and as well as the casual dining. So those type of things are very important when you're looking at your facilities. Because again, we go back to the ladies, the buy decision. I waited 43 years before I got married. I was a single guy. I never knew about this thing. But once I got married and understood, I said, wait a minute, I made the decisions for 43 years. Well, I don't understand what's going on here. My life's changing. And all of a sudden, now it's a team effort of making decisions. I'm sure most of you are familiar with that. And it's something to be remembered along the process, is that, this is a group decision these days. And we keep beating a dead horse here, but it's a real live horse that's kicking that we have to address in our industry day in and day out. So that's kind of my feelings on that subject, Mike.
The only extra comments I'd like to make is when we were designing and thinking about developing the Ridge, my wife and I had one main goal, and that was to make sure the club was fair to males and females. So when we did that, again, like Trump's and Eric's course down south, our locker rooms are the similar quality. They're not the same size, obviously, because we have a lot more male players, or at least the projections were by the architects and by the Fazio group. But the quality is the same. There's a bar in the men's locker room, so there needs to be a bar in the ladies' locker room. There's a fireplace, and in the ladies' locker room, which the men don't even have. So things like that are very important when we were selling memberships, because we were a new club. We were starting from scratch 10 years ago, and we just as often we had professional women coming in or accompanying their husbands, and it was just as important to some of them, the quality of the golf course. It was just as important to a few of them, or a decent amount of them, were the quality of the facilities. They wanted to feel like they were equal. Things like that, our bar area, which you've all mentioned. For those who have been to the Ridge, that's where 80% of our people, the way our clubhouse is designed, it's all designed to be used on a daily basis. We don't have since we're only a golf club, we're not really a full country club. What was important to us was to design a unique clubhouse that would be used almost entirely on a day-to-day basis. So we don't have a lot of empty ballrooms and things like that. Our members utilize the bar area on a daily basis, the casual dining room, things like that. And our practice facility, being only a golf club, it was important to my wife and I that when we were dealing with the Fazio group in the initial design, that our practice facility would be extremely large, so that we can put a section of children at one end, or ladies taking a clinic or individual lessons. You know, we have separate areas just for teaching and multiple different putting greens and things like that, where for a club like ours, the practice facility is what's very important. It draws not only the competitive established golfers, it also helps in drawing the newer golfers, because they hear what a great practice facility we have and what a very good teaching staff we have, et cetera. So those are all things that help to get and draw new members.
Well, let's now talk about money. When I go to the meeting in Monterey the last several years, we talk about money. We talk about initiation deposits. And it always comes to my mind that we're talking, why isn't Monty Hall here? Because it's really all about, let's make a deal. Yeah. It's not like you have an initiation deposit, you throw it out there and it's take it or leave it. You know, I got somebody behind you if you don't want this. Those days are gone, way gone. So it's more like, well, what do you want to pay? So, tell me how you guys wrestle with that new question.
That's a good question. It's a fact that most of our clubs are under stress from the situation, whether it's operational or if it's deposit or initiation fee-based stress. The initiation fee and deposit scenario is a real issue. The programs of the 90s where you put money in and you get a deposit, and the rosy story is that when you leave you get your money back, and you leave and you get, you can bank your money for 10 years and get it out, all of a sudden has become a horror story in the industry with, okay, I want my money back. Okay, well, you're 70 on the list, and we got to, for every 4 people that come in, 1 person gets paid out. Do the math, and you're dead before you get your money back. So, and this is a major problem, and probably not at the highest tier clubs, but at, from medium to high to all the way down into, your lower end clubs that charge these fees. So different people are doing different things. We can go over all the scenarios, but the message I would send is this, is that in the clubs that we get into that have these problems, we try to address these things up front and say, what can we do to alleviate this? Example, the club in Indiana, very prosperous, but it has, in 2008, there was 35 people that left, and there was only an average of 10 to 15. That was our sales process, is that we got 10 to 15 in, we got 10 to 15 out, and everything was happy, and everybody got their money back. Well, until 30 people left in 1 year, now all of a sudden the waiting list starts to go upside down. Is that the ownership there made the effort to say, hey, I'm gonna look past that 4-to-1, and I'm gonna honor a 1-to-1 because it's the right thing to do, and we're more competitive if we don't have a waiting list to get out. Some people can do that, some people don't. That was the strongest message to send to people that wanted to come into the club or out, because let's face it, that's a common question in the sales process now. The other side of the thing is how do you, is retaining those members, because if you retain people, you don't have to sign as many new people up and your list doesn't get as large. So I think from that standpoint is all of our jobs in this room is retaining members and making them happy, and not going of the club average of 10% per year attrition and hoping you're going to get 10% new people. I think if you could make goals at your club to say, hey, we're going to really try to cut down this attrition by all the things that have been talked about today, it really starts to alleviate the pressure on the club itself, if it's an equity club, or the ownership if it's privately owned. And the last thing I'll say is, this panic mode of price adjustments in the industry is running rampant, and it's only a downward spiral if you start it. Obviously you have to, what I call, adjust to market, and everybody has hopefully used that as adjusting and not dropping. But the adjustment of your market prices to your memberships or to your dues, it just shouldn't be a knee-jerk reaction. You should really, really analyze it and think about it. And think about protecting the value of the existing members. That's what a lot of clubs aren't doing right now, is they're saying, okay, well, let's just drop the fee, and all of a sudden the 250 members that paid in high are figuring out, like, what's going on here? So there's clever ways to work around that if you research and you do things that, you know, are proactive. You know, we're doing a conversion again in Indiana. I keep going back to that because there's a lot of activity there. We had a $50,000 refundable fee. And the market says people aren't paying $50,000 anymore there. They're paying 20, they're paying 30, but they're not paying 50. So we're coming out with a 50-50 refund, 50% refundable, 50% non-refundable at 30. And we feel that this is not going to compromise, and we'll still offer the 50 plan, but it won't compromise the people who paid in at 50, because people coming in at 30 are losing $15,000 the instant they join. So the time value of money and how that carries is very important. So those are the things that we're doing, and I, again, would suggest, most important, do not panic. You're smart people, you could figure it out. It's the people that are just changing things on the fly 3 times in the year that are finding themselves further and further in the spiral.
Everyone needs to look at their own club and how it's working. And as what was discussed numerous times today, I think the first question you need to ask is your model working? Are you retaining members? At the Ridge, thank God, we don't have an issue retaining members. We'd still like to sell more memberships. We're not sold out yet, but we haven't had the issue of losing members, other than normal issues of relocation and health, et cetera. So I think you have to check your model. I think you need to be flexible. When we first started, you know, someone would come in, a prospective member would come in and ask what the price is, and we would tell them, and we would, you know, our documents, it was all prepared, and it would say, you know, you pay your fee in 30 days or whatever. Now you have to be flexible. If a person needs an extended payment plan or multiple plans over a period of time, if they have to wait until they get their bonus at the end of the year, things like that, you just have to be flexible in today's market. So that's an important thing. And then we've also done things like a year or two ago, for the first time, we started what we call the Ridge Experience. It's a temporary membership for 1 year. All they have to do is pay dues and a small administration fee, and they can be a member for a year, and we call it the Ridge Experience. And hopefully at the end of that year, and knock on wood, percentage-wise, a good percentage of those people convert to a full regular membership after that year. But you give them the opportunity to meet and get friendly with people, and if they really had a great experience and they formed new friends, they're not going to want to leave the club. So, you know, a year later, you get them as a full regular member. And then we've added other types of memberships, national memberships, junior memberships, and then a year ago we also offered a legacy what we call legacy membership, which our documents allowed children of a member up to age 23. And then we found out all of a sudden, since we were a new club, we didn't have that issue at the beginning, but our members are getting a little older, their kids are getting older, and then, you know, they're 24 years old, out on their own, starting their new career, and they were no longer had access to the club unless they were going to be a guest of the parents. So we then changed that, and we have a legacy membership, which gives them, I think, another 5 or 6 years on top of that, and they only pay a small annual fee of like $2,500 a year, and they have access to the club for those additional years. So things like that, I think. Bottom line is you just have to be flexible. It's a different market. As Mike said, you don't want to be in a position to have to say no to a prospective member. So you just have to be prepared to react and do whatever's possible to bring in those new members.
It's very competitive. It seems like everyone that comes into the club and meets with our membership director wants a deal, and it's pretty much dictated by your market. You know, we spend a lot of time researching and figuring out what our competitors are doing, because being that we're a recent private club, meaning it's only been going into our 4th season, we've been very fortunate. Our membership has been nothing but you know, rising on an annual basis with minimal resignations. But you know, it is challenging, but we made a commitment, being that, you know, we are Trump, and we are going to stick to our brand, much like Vernon Hill said, you create a brand and you must stick by it. So you cannot be reactive in the sense to where you hurt your brand and you end up getting into the same thing as your competitors where you spiral downward. I know my market, and over the last 10 years, it's just amazing to know that what clubs used to charge on an annual basis plus to get in and what they're actually giving away now just for you to join. So, I would just recommend that you make a commitment with your club, you know your competitors, and you stay true to what you are. Obviously, you do need to think outside of the box and be as creative as possible, but at the end of the day, you want to stick to what you actually branded that club to be. And we've been very successful with it, and it's not just us. There's many people that you can think of that have created great brands in this country and across the world. They've stuck to it and been very successful because you will separate yourselves from the others. You just need to decide where you want to be in your market and stick true to it. But be creative and be flexible. I agree with Joel. You have to think outside of the box.
This has been a great turnout, and I'm sure that all of our guys, from the owner's perspective, are encouraged by the fact that the coalition, you've got a good coalition of people involved in the golf industry. I would encourage you to work closely together on a range of issues. One is to improve the golf environment, the participation rate in New Jersey, and all the issues that we've talked about today. I also think there's room for the coalition to work together in the legislative and regulatory area, which in my view is a big need in New Jersey. Whether it's a water issue or a tax issue or tourism or whatever, if you work together, you're going to be far more effective than if you try to attack these things separately. So, having said my little speech, do I have any questions for these experts?
The question was, there's more and more single moms in the communities and across the country now, with children, right, and dads. And are there any ways that our clubs are accommodating this? My answer is no. I mean, simply no. It never really dawned on me to really think about that. Shame on me. But certainly, it's something to think about if that's a market, and that, thank you for the feedback.
The issue of significant other, how are we accommodating or not accommodating that request?
We actually have that. We have a couple of those type of memberships at the club, and we just treat that as any other membership. The language is a little different in your membership agreement, but at the same time, we did realize that in our second season, and we worked with our legal team, because obviously even with a regular husband and wife marriage, you have to deal with the potential of a split up at some point. So we have dealt with that, we've accommodated that, and we've been successful with it.
And I'll add to that is that significant other could be two things: same gender membership or male-female non-married, I guess you could say, right?
We've had both.
So the rules that we have in some of our private clubs is that, same gender is good, girlfriend, boyfriend are good, but you can only bring one girlfriend a year or boyfriend a year onto your membership. If you're like me, before I got married, maybe like 3 girls in 1 year, but we say you have to have 1 year. You have to have one person that's assigned for the year, and if you break up, well then too bad, you got to wait till next year to bring the next one. So that's how, legitimate, that's how we do it, so it works out well.
When a member resigns, do you do exit interviews? Is the information helpful?
Yeah, the answer is yes, yes, and yes. Like I started the conversation this afternoon, is that the surveys we treat as gold, and the exit interviews is just as important, if not more. One of the things that we watch in the higher end private clubs is spending patterns. So if we find that people are spending less, we have a mechanism in place to reach out to those people to find out why. If they're spending less, that means they're utilizing the club less, and they're more likely to resign because of lack of utilization. So if we get to that point, I'd say a lot of it over the last couple of years has been financial and lack of use. But if there's a common theme in resignations, hey, the golf pro is rude, the clubhouse is in terrible shape, people are mean here, whatever that might be, certainly that gets followed up on. But I'd say try to cut it to the chase and see in your clubs if you could put a mechanism in place to avoid the attrition if at all possible. And like I said earlier, less attrition means less additions to your sales program or your net growth. But that mechanism in place to follow up with them and say, hey, Joe, why haven't you been in the club? Or what can we do to make you come out more, and get feedback like that is important.
The question is about gender equity, and not so much the facilities, but the tee times and availability. And she doesn't feel like the resistance is coming from the management, rather the sort of the constituents. How do you guys deal with that?
Well, I can tell you, and I think I mentioned it before, we have insisted from day one that both males and females are treated equally. We do not have a time that's reserved for men, nor do we have times that are reserved for women. Both men and women can play at the Ridge at any time they want. We've also done some things over the last few years based upon member requests where we changed our scorecard. We've either added tee boxes, or we've given them combinations of rated and sloped courses on the scorecard from multiple sets of tees, because some of the better women didn't want to only play from the forward tees, but maybe some of the holes on the next set of tees were too difficult. So we ended up doing some 3 different combinations for all our members, which gives them all different distances from 5,500 yards to 7,300 yards. I think we now have 6 different ranked, rated, and sloped courses on our card. So I think and again, when especially at the beginning, when we were selling memberships at a high rate, at a fairly high dollar amount, and half the time or more, the female accompanied the male when they were coming for the initial tour or interview. And a lot of those instances where the female was a professional working female, that was one of the first questions we asked. Am I going to be allowed to play Saturday morning? Is it restricted? And when we told them no, they could play anytime they want, a lot of them signed right at that moment. Didn't even have to go on they saw a couple of holes, they didn't have to see it. And that was very important to a lot of females.
It kind of takes care of itself. As I had mentioned earlier, we have the ladies that are very competitive and good golfers, and then we have those ladies that are just real in for the enjoyment with their husbands. So there's several couples that the husband will play in the morning, they'll have lunch, and they'll go back out and play in the afternoon. However, we do restrict in the morning. There is an expectation of time frame of when you're supposed to complete your round, and then we do have, which lends to taking care of itself as far as they need to play faster, but we do have a restriction on guest policies of the number of guests and when you can bring them on weekends and holidays. That's our restriction.
And I think the last point to that is that it depends. The newer programs that are being designed for membership are very gender-friendly tee time-wise. A lot of the old established memberships had something called a family add-on or spouse, which was a discount off the standard rate. So if you were charging $10,000 a year for your single, now you charge $15,000 a year for your spouse. So it's a 50% discount in the mind of the way the membership works. So, the way we've combated it, some of the facilities we've consulted with or whatever, is that, hey, if we have a spouse program and the spouse could be the male or the female. It doesn't matter to us. And we'd like to address that equally and say, if you want to, if the program is you're paying half price for the second person, and it's not an all-inclusive membership like Joel or Eric have, and I'm sure your clubs have this, you could designate Mrs. as the primary and Mr. as the spouse, or you could buy 2 full-price memberships, and then they can play wherever they want. So I think it also depends on the club, the way the membership program and documents are set up. Joel and Eric are fortunate because they have newer clubs, and those programs were built in a newer age. But a lot of you, I'm sure, have clubs that those membership programs are 15, 20 years old.
I will say that the national trend is for equal access. These issues are going away. I was a little surprised, actually, that this is an issue. What I'm really saying is people are changing. Things are changing. You either make a decision to change or not. And I'm not saying there's a blanket rule that the guy in jeans could be everywhere. but I'm saying you need to find a place to accommodate the guy in jeans. You know, I know clubs that are allowing guys in designer jeans. They'll have a designer jean, not a guy with Levi's with 10 rips in his jeans, but a guy has a $500 dollar pair of jeans. He can be in this casual dining area over here. Maybe Mr. CEO guy wants to go over in the formal dining with his wife, which is fine. That's great. But there's a place to accommodate both. The most progressive clubs that I see, they find a way to accommodate both sets of customers. What I'm arguing against is the blanket rule that says no jeans, no wear, no how, no way. I think that's a bad idea.
Yeah, and I think
that's my personal opinion.
Mike, I'll add that we have 4 private clubs active right now, and that one of those is a no jeans. I think there's certain traditions that certain clubs just won't and can't break. The 2 of the 4 we converted over to jeans because we found that they weren't coming to the club as much because they were on their way by the club, and the mom had jeans on or the dad had jeans on, and they said, well, we can't go to the club because we're too formally dressed, because we're in communities. So these places are spot-of-the-moment decisions to go eat at the club. And we found that, it was just like the gentleman said, we had people that really pushed the limit on these jeans. You came up with holes in them, and it was a tough couple months to really drill in and dial down to get this. But at the end of the day, even the naysayers were appreciative because it provided more of an atmosphere for those people in those particular clubs. The old club in St. Petersburg, I'll be dead and gone before we allow jeans in there. Those people just don't want them, and we understand that's just a do not touch rule on that particular club. But I think it's all specific to your particular club and the way your club is getting evolving over time.
I have one more thing to add. I think that's real important for everyone to understand is we're talking a lot today about making the women feel more invited to the club. Think of how many of you go out with your wives to dinner. They're always wearing jeans, a blouse, and some heels. It's become commonplace when they're going out to dinner, and it goes back to what David's saying. We see more of a challenge when we made our decision in Trump Philly was based on the wives and the girlfriends more than we did the males. And there are very strict restrictions on what they can wear with jeans, the type, and how it's accessorized. But you do have to think outside the box, and it was more about the ladies than it was about men.
That counts for controversy in golf, jeans debate. Thank you.